This is the Ohio Farm Bureau podcast. I'm Ty Higgins. Throughout history, climate impacts on crop production are notable. In most years, decreases in crop yields have occurred due to short-term exposure to stresses characterized by lack of adequate moisture or temperatures outside the optimal range for plant growth. Ohio Farm Bureau's Senior Director of Policy Development and Environmental Policy, Dr. Larry Antosh, took a deeper dive into Ohio agriculture in a changing climate. Dr. A, welcome to the Ohio Farm Bureau podcast. Great to see you.
Nice seeing you again, Ty.
So what have the climate trends been for Ohio, let's say, over the past 100 years?
Well, what we've been seeing is that Ohio has been getting a little warmer and been getting wetter. So we're seeing like the average temperatures increasing, but those temperatures are more rising temperatures are more in the spring and the fall. And then in terms of precipitation has been increasing, but primarily in the winter, spring, and fall, not so much in the summer.
A lot of things we do at Ohio Farm Bureau impact agriculture. There are things we do on the policy front, giving our members valuable resources for land ownership and passing on to the next generation. Some things are out of our control, and that is weather. You broke this down into 4 categories as to how these changes in the climate impact Ohio agriculture. You broke it down in temperature, precipitation, weeds, pest, disease, and livestock. So I want to break those down with you and how these 4 issues impact Ohio's climate and Ohio's agriculture as a whole, starting with temperature. You mentioned that they're on the rise.
Yes, and I would say that if we link the temperature and precipitation, those 2 drivers are really impacting the other 2. So if we start looking at temperature, in reality, what Ohio is seeing is a longer growing season. Springs are getting warmer earlier and falls are staying warmer later. So that frost-free period is increasing to the point where it's about 9 to 10 days longer in terms of the growing season. So that temperature impact or influence really provides an opportunity, if you think about it, as for Ohio farmers to maybe look at double cropping and to do things on that nature rather than the traditional cropping.
So seeing some opportunities from the temperature standpoint. Precipitation is a whole different animal. We have seen wet springs and wet falls. Those aren't really convenient times to see participation and really kind of closes the window of opportunity for farmers to get the job done.
Well, it does. It's almost like a catch-22. While we're seeing a longer growing season, frost-free season, fall and spring are getting wetter. And so we're losing about 9 field days a year in terms of being able to get out and either do the planting, the field work, and the harvesting. So from the precipitation standpoint, it's kind of squeezing down the opportunity that we had because of increased temperatures. The other thing that we're seeing is the skies open up and we're seeing these in immense, like last night, for example, parts of Ohio got 6 inches of rain. It just the deluge is just a little too much to handle.
As a sidebar, what does that mean? The precipitation in particular to what Ohio farmers are trying to do from a water quality standpoint?
Well, as you get that high intensity rainfall, obviously, if we're looking at traditional conservation practices, those practices really weren't designed for these high intensity events. So we're seeing potential for increased runoff, increased offsite movement of pesticides, nutrients, sediment, erosion potential, things on that nature. So when the skies open, the systems just can't handle it. We're seeing, the same thing in the cities with urban flooding and things on that nature, combined through overflow increases. Designed for a storm that happened in the past, not for the design for the storm that's happening today.
And you mentioned those top 2, temperatures and precip, really kind of lend to the last 2. And we'll start with weeds, pests, and disease, seeing some significant changes in that category.
Yes, we are. Think about this past winter. It essentially was the winter that never happened. We had the very short around Christmas time, real cold polar vortex came in, but other than that, it was a mild winter, and those mild winters really don't do anything in terms of knocking back uh, pests or weeds. They don't freeze out. They don't have that opportunity to freeze. So as the temperatures get warmer, also as the uh, air gets more moisture, it gets more humid. Uh, we end up with more funguses and viruses and just pests along the way. So as we're seeing this warmer weather conditions, we have to start being aware of what kinds of pests are currently around, what aren't being cut back or died back, and then also what it might be migrating up from the south. This is a good example this year is the number of ticks. There's a lot of temperature conditions were such that there's a large tick population, and again, the impact that that has on humans and animals, is very notable.
We've focused quite a bit on crop production in this conversation. What does it mean for livestock producers when we talk about the changing climate in Ohio?
Well, as we know, humans are animals. There's certain temperature conditions, certain things that we just feel good at when the temperature is right and the humidity is right. And animals are the same. Our livestock uh, farmers have to do the same thing with the livestock that they're raising, the animals that they're raising. Want to make sure that we have good temperatures, good humidity. As the temperatures get too high, animals don't eat as much, so there's a weight gain loss, or they're not producing as much milk or not producing as many eggs, and so the comfort of the animal, just like the comfort of humans, really have to be taken into account and modified or adjusted, I should say, given the conditions that we're seeing now and what is projected to happen into the future.
Visiting with Dr. Larry Antosh. He's Ohio Farm Bureau's Senior Director of Policy Development and Environmental Policy, visiting about his recent report, Ohio Agriculture in a Changing Climate. Dr. A, are farmers' perceptions of climate change changing?
I think that anyone that works out the outside, be it a farmer or a construction worker or what have you, they're noticing changes in the weather patterns, the fact that it's getting wetter and all. And so farmers from the standpoint recognizing the fact that, hey, I can't get out and plant as early as I used to because it's wet, or I can't harvest as when I wanted to because it's wet in the fall. Those kinds of conditions are there. It's hotter in the summer. I may be thinking about putting in an irrigation system because the crops need to have some kind of a water source other than just Mother Nature. So from the standpoint of the agriculturalists or the farmers, they're recognizing that the changes are happening and are making adjustments as necessary.
We're seeing weather forecasters get tomorrow's forecast wrong. So this next question may be tongue in cheek, and you can do the best you can. But what future climate conditions should Ohio farmers be prepared for?
Well, one way that the climate specialists kind of look at these things is they kind of call it the migrating state. They're essentially saying, okay, where is Ohio's climate going to be? Again, based off of models. And there's all kinds of models out there, and the weather forecasters, some are better than others, but long-term conditions are such that Ohio's weather is one that will migrate to the south and west in the wintertime, so kind of the Arkansas-ish kind of conditions, and then in the wintertime, warmer again, so down into the kind of the Carolinas. So what we're anticipating is looking at warmer winters, warmer summers, more moisture, higher humidity,
More sunscreen.
more sunscreen, more.
How Ohio farmers adjusted, and how will they have to adjust to these changes down the line?
Well, if you look at some of the models, I mean, they essentially say that Ohio will no longer be a corn growing state, it'd be soybean growing state. So there could be some changes in terms of crops. The way the crops being grown, and that provides opportunities for other crops to come in and to grow. So farmers are adapting by looking at different seed varieties that are in terms of the conditions that we're seeing. So there's that adaptation taking place. Maybe because of the shrinking of the window of opportunity to get out and do field work, rather than doing it all yourself, hire out maybe the planting or the application of fertilizers, things on that nature, just because you have that smaller window. We're looking at different changes in harvesting. Cover crops are great for soil quality and carbon and all that, but if you can't get out and plant them in the fall, because either you have crops already out there, or you don't want to have major soil compaction, what kinds of other opportunities are there, either aerial application or drone application? So modifying what we're doing to address the conditions is probably the biggest opportunity. And then again, looking at, are there alternative crops that might be able to be grown?
Dr. A, what were some of the major takeaways from this report for you?
Well, I think that, obviously, farmers are aware that the conditions are changing, and they are making the adjustments for that. We're seeing wetter winter, spring, and falls. Summertime, while we may be getting the same amount of precipitation that's coming in these short duration, high intensity storms, and then dry periods. You look at what happened here in May, and essentially we have what I would call a flash drought. You had a month of May with no rain, and then we started getting precipitation again. So we're seeing the need in the future for maybe some additional irrigation to cover those dry periods. Again, livestock production needing to be aware of the conditions and making sure the animals are healthy, and our livestock growers are doing that. But again, it's just making sure that it's there, that's up on the radar screen. The fact that that we're in the times when we could see these early springs or false springs. Look at the state of Georgia. The peach state has run out of peaches. More than 90% of their peach crop got lost because it was a warm February, buds broke, flowered, and then a late season, two frosts later in March, and that essentially took out the peach crop. So we need to look at these adjustments on early springs, false springs as they're called, and make those kinds of adjustments.
You can read Ohio Agriculture in a Changing Climate, that full report, at ohiofarmbureau.org, written by Dr. Larry Antosh, Ohio Farm Bureau's Senior Director of Public Policy Development and Environmental Policy. Dr. A, great to see you. Thanks for the insights.
Thanks, Ty. Good seeing you again.
Here in our state, there's an energy at work, a drive to help people live healthier lives with confidence. But it can't be done alone. That's why our healthcare, business, and community leaders have joined together to help people here feel more empowered by their healthcare, leading to improved long-term health and savings. A health plan for small businesses in the agricultural industry was created by the Ohio Farm Bureau Federation. It provides members the tools, resources, and financial protection to feel confident in their healthcare decisions. By sharing responsibilities, we help build healthier employees and communities, driving down costs, connecting members digitally to Anthem's diverse network of local resources, participating in health literacy, easing administrative burdens. Joining the plan means you're part of making healthcare work better, giving people the confidence to make anything possible. To learn more about how the plan can work for your business, visit our website or call your broker or Anthem sales representative.
Find out how Nationwide Agribusiness can help you grow your business. Get to know the people with the experience and knowledge to help you. Whether you are looking to protect your farm or ranch from the ground up, or need someone who understands your changing commercial ag needs? Find out how to better manage the risks of your ag business, or how quickly you can get back to business. Learn how you can protect your next with Nationwide on your side.
Welcome back to the Ohio Farm Bureau podcast. I'm Ty Higgins. Mowing the grass, one of my favorite things to do, a task so common most don't give it a second thought. Unfortunately, though, it presents significant hazards that can lead to serious injury, even death. Each incident, a chilling reminder of the hazards that come with any activity so many of us find so routine. Ryan Towns joins us this week. He's Assistant Director of the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation's Public Employment Risk Reduction Program in the Division of Safety and Hygiene. Ryan, great to see you. Thanks for being with us this week.
Hey, Ty, glad to be here.
So BWC has been doing some work around mowing safety. Can you talk about the importance of mowing safety and what you're seeing in the workplace?
Yeah, definitely. Mowing seems to be a pretty simple household chore. But in Ohio workplaces, we've been seeing an increase in mowing related serious injuries, and unfortunately, sometimes worse than just those injuries. In Ohio, we can attribute a good majority of these incidents to operators not being familiar with the locations that they're going to be mowing. Whether that be terrain hazards such as high degree slopes that they're mowing that their mowers can't necessarily handle, or embankments, or concealed obstructions such as manhole covers, drainage pipes, or irrigation systems that the operator may encounter while they're kind of just going back and forth doing that mowing.
Walk us through some of the most important things people need to know before they get on that mower in the first place.
Certainly, great point. So the first step to mitigating some of those hazards with the task is to make sure the operators are properly trained. Number one, always got to make sure that everybody's trained on the equipment that they're going to be using. It starts with knowing and understanding the machine's functions, the limitations especially, and ensuring that the operators have performed a walk around of their equipment to identify any defects that could pose a hazard while they engage in the work. Also, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the incidents we see are from people not being familiar with the locations they're mowing. Informing the operator on these issues prior to engaging in the work and then deciding the method to go about it is very crucial, especially if this is the person's first time at that location. You never really just kind of want to drop somebody in, give them a mower and say, go ahead and have fun with it. So some of the methods of informing them that they could be no mow zones, switching out equipment for something that provides more control, like a push mower or a string trimmer near those drop-offs, or some additional awareness and letting them know of when and how they may encounter those hazards so that they can be more cognizant and apply those proper approaches to get the job done.
Great advice before you fire that mower up, but now you're on the mower, you're getting ready to go. What are some of the safety concerns to be aware of before you get going?
Definitely. A lot of operators think that the mowing blades are the main hazard, and rightfully so. They can cause serious injury and need to be properly guarded. But there are also a few items to think about, whether it be the pulley system on the deck or near the engine, or the power takeoff, the PTO shaft that's spinning on any of your attachments that you might have running behind you. Stepping over a PTO is never a good idea, and it can cause some caught-in hazards. So ensure that it's properly guarded with an improved cover. Rollovers also are a pretty serious issue here in Ohio when you're on a mower. Engaging the rollover protective structure, the ROPS, is one of the main methods operators can use to protect themselves. Ensuring the ROPS are engaged and the operator is wearing a seatbelt can provide life-saving protection when mowing on or near those terrain hazards mentioned earlier. Also, it is important to make sure that on flat, even terrain with a potential overhead hazard such as a tree branch, wires, even mowing in your backyard or anywhere else, you might have a playground structure or something like that, that you do put down those ROPS so that they don't get entangled and cause a struck by hazard.
What if people need to take their equipment on the roadway?
Yeah, you got to get from point A to point B every so often. As we know, distracted driving can be a problem. So we want to make sure our equipment can be seen from a distance. and we're giving adequate warning to those motorists when they're traveling down the roadway. So that includes making sure all your lights are working on your tractor, incorporating some flashing or oscillating lights. And also don't forget about that slow moving vehicle sign. We want to make sure that we're as apparent to the motorist that we can be, and they can take the appropriate action to safely navigate around you.
Ryan Towns, Assistant Director of Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation's Public Employment Risk Reduction Program and Division of Safety and Hygiene. Ryan, if those listening want to find out more about safety in the workplace, where can they go?
Sure. They can check out the BWC's website at bwc.ohio.gov.
Thank you, Ryan.
Appreciate the opportunity, Ty.